Edwards.
For real?
For real. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for taking some time with us.
Well, I'm very, very pleased to be here, and thank you for the invitation. And I want you to know that I hope that we can render some small service to this failing station.
Wow. This is going to be good.
You can always take Sam's chair if you'd like.
Yeah.
If you'd like. We would love that. There's so many places that we would love to go with you, and I mostly just want to visit, you know. Are you comfortable talking about the time that you served?
Well, absolutely. I'm not happy about it, but I'm comfortable.
Okay.
Because I served the time, went 8.5 years, followed all the rules. I walked in with my head up, walked out with my head up.
Mm-hmm.
I never had a disciplinary problem the whole time I was there, and I spent most of my time helping other inmates who needed help from someone with a legal background and who had the ability to write and help them with correspondence and legal problems. And I just felt like I was being of service to people who otherwise had nobody to turn to.
Right. So you made friends quickly.
Oh, absolutely. It's part of my Cajun heritage.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Did the other prisoners respect you as, oh, wow, look, it's Governor Edwards, or were you just another number to them? Or
I like to believe that they showed a certain deference to me, and I appreciated that very much. It was better in Oakdale than it was in Fort Worth, because in Fort Worth, most of the prisoners were people from Texas, Oklahoma, and that area, and knew very little about me. Right. Those that were there from Louisiana, of course, felt different, and I had a very good relationship with them. Never had a problem with a prisoner in the whole 8.5 years I was there. When I got to Oakdale, it was quite different. Most of the guards were from that area,
right.
And either their fathers or mothers, or they knew me from past experience. And many of the inmates there were from Louisiana or this area. So it was quite different and a lot better for me.
So you didn't have to trade smokes or anything. You could just get whatever you wanted.
Well, smokes were prohibited in the prison, so I never had that problem.
I understand and read that when you went in, the day that you went in with your family, there was an address given to the media so that people could write you, the people of Louisiana. Did you get a lot of love, letters? What did you get?
It was amazing. One day, shortly after I got there, I got 177 pieces of mail. And during the 8.5 years I was in prison, I averaged between 15 and 20 letters a day, which if you put the figure to it is about 35,000 letters. And I made an effort, and I did respond to every one of them. In most instances, however, I had to use a form letter, which I individualized and personalized so that people would know I, in fact, had read the letters, because it was a source of great, great, great comfort to me that so many people in Louisiana felt that I'd been unfairly treated, or even those who felt like I deserved to be in prison felt like the sentence was too harsh. But I will never be able to express adequately to the people of this state the kindness and the consideration and the forgiveness which they showed, and it has helped bolster me and kept me in the spirit that I like to think I'm at now.
Mm-hmm. How did your time there change you? Did it?
I just had to change my diet because they served us lunch at 10:30 in the morning and dinner meal at 2:30, and nothing other than that. Now in Oakdale, if you wanted to get up earlier and go and have dry cereal, you could do that, but I didn't do that. I had to get up at 6 o'clock. And I did, because those were the rules, but I didn't want to get up at 5 to go eat cereal, so I didn't. When I went to Fort Worth, the food was so terrible there, I lost 25 pounds. But when I got to Oakdale, where we had Cajun cooking, I gained it all back.
Yes, that's what I wanted to know. First meal when you got out, what did you want?
Well, actually, I went to Cracker Barrel with Trina because it was breakfast time, and we like eating at Cracker Barrel, and also like IHOP, but my favorite restaurant, of course, is either Sullivan's or Chris's.
Right.
But it was in the morning.
In the morning.
In the morning.
You know, it's funny about that is I could have answered that question for you because Trina put that on Facebook.
That's right. And I understand you're on Facebook now. Will you be my friend if I send you a request?
He's got too many
Yeah,
friends.
he's hit the maximum limit already.
But we're friends now.
Oh.
Well, now that we're friends, I'd rather just have a more personal relationship with you.
Uh-huh.
Sure. Not social media.
Well, your husband is here. Let's be careful.
Okay.
Well, on a personal note there, your wife Trina's here. How did you two meet? Was it while you were over at Oakdale?
Trina, surprisingly to most of you, is a Republican. Has been all her life.
Oh, I bet that's fun.
Well, it's the first time I've enjoyed being in bed with a Republican.
See, you are wearing red today.
She read the book, and she lived in Alexandria at the time, and thousands of people came about with a changed opinion of me.
Right.
And she wrote me like thousands of people saying, I read your book, I have a different opinion, I have fixed opinions about you, but I would want you to know that I have changed my opinion. And I sent her back a form letter, not knowing who she was, considering she just one of those thousands that had written.
Right.
And she wrote back and said, I got you a form letter, and she underlined form letter. I thought you would at least send me a personal letter, so I wrote her back. And she wrote back and said that sometimes she, if I could arrange it, she'd like to visit me. And she sent me a picture. And when I saw the picture, I said, well,
What are you doing tomorrow?
this is a Republican that I definitely want to visit with. And so we arranged it, and she showed up. And for the many people who have some concerns about the fact that a man my age is married to a woman her age, and many people probably have the assumption that she married me for my money and power. But let me say this, and I never miss an opportunity to tell this to people, and I'm glad I can do it by this medium, because I understand you'll have several hundred listeners.
Thank you, Governor. Maybe we'll get a few more now.
She visited me the first time on a Saturday morning, showed up at 8 o'clock, the earliest she could be there, stayed at the visiting room 7 hours. And when I saw her, I think, I don't believe in love in first sight, but I took a second look and fell in love with her. And she came back to visit me for a solid year every Saturday and Sunday, on Christmas Day, on New Year's Day, on Thanksgiving Day, every time we had a visiting day. And it's just something that happened. We fell in love. And I want people to know that this woman was kind to me and considered and loved me when I was nobody, when I was an old man, broke and in prison. And that's the greatest testament of true relationships and love that I could ever have. And it has meant tremendous to me, and I'll go to my grave knowing that that's one of the many, many wonderful things that happened to me in my life.
And she has two sons, or I guess you both have the two sons now. How do you get along with them?
Beautifully. They are very well-mannered boys. She's a great mother, and they do well in school, and we assign them tasks around the house, and they do it without complaint. I really, really am very pleased to be with them and anxious to spend some time with them.
I have a question. Who would you want to play you in your biopic?
Edwin Edwards. No, Kevin Costner.
Really?
Kevin Costner.
As an old
choice.
Edwin Edwards, I'll take one of the younger guys for the other part.
Do you have any? I don't know because of the legalities of it, but are you able to run for office again? And if you were, do you have any aspirations?
I'm not able to run because in my absence, they passed legislation which prohibits a person from running earlier than 15 years after his release. I'm glad that they did that because if I were able to run, I would run. And I am almost certain that I would win.
Yes,
And then I would inherit tremendous problems that have been left to the next governor by this present governor. But that's academic and moot because I cannot run, so I don't think about it.
So how old will you be when you can run?
95.
So, okay.
Okay, we'll keep that open then.
And I'm careful with my diet and visit my doctor regularly. I may fool everybody and live to run.
Wow.
If you were allowed one day to go in and tackle an issue for this state again, which issue would it be?
I'd have to tackle the financial situation, which has crippled higher education, has affected teachers, civil servants, working men and women, and also has left the state with a busted budget. We are $1.5 billion in the red, and somebody has to make arrangements to pay that. Otherwise, our children and grandchildren will inherit a bankrupt state.
Do people still seek your advice right now? Current legislators, anybody in state government? They reach out and ask questions?
They do. They seek my advice on everything but successful marriages.
That's good news, huh, Trina?
I want to know this. Do you believe that people are born with charm, or do you have to work at it?
I did both. I was born with it, but I work at it. But it's part of my Cajun heritage. My mother was a self-taught midwife who delivered over 1,800 children to poor women, and sometimes was paid nothing or with a chicken or a bucket of syrup.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew in my young days, many times she got up in the middle of the night and hooked up a buggy and drove a couple of miles to a neighbor's house to help deliver a child. But, you know, I'm very fortunate. I love people. I really do. I want people to be well and happy and successful. And, you know, just the other day, and I'm going to take this opportunity to say something. Just the other day, we ran into a poor fella at Walmart who came up to me and introduced himself with a little 12-year-old son and said he was sleeping in his car because he couldn't find a house. He had made an application for a federal subsidy at a rent place, subsidized place in his parish, and he was on the waiting list. I called the lady in charge of it and explained the situation to her, and she was very kind and considerate, looked up his record, and that afternoon he was assigned a place.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that made me feel good because I knew that I had done something to help that little boy and that man and his wife have a better way of life. Now, it wasn't a mansion. It wasn't a great thing. As a matter of fact, I ran into him later, and he told me he was having trouble finding furniture. But at least he was out of the night and out of the elements and was able to have a place to go home to. And one of the things, unbelievable, uncounted letters of people wrote me reminding me of things that I did for them or relatives or friends that I'm not even aware of. It's just second nature to me.
You were away during some of the bigger things that have happened here in the past decade in Louisiana, and we didn't get to hear your 2 cents or your voice on them.
Katrina.
Coming to mind, Katrina and the BP oil spill. I mean, Katrina, any thoughts on that?
I watched from a prison television the horror of Katrina, and I was horrified that federal, state, and local government could not get together and determine what to do and to do something. I, of course, would have been criticized for it, but I would have immediately called the legislature into session and asked for dictatorial powers, unrestrained authority to deal with the situation. I would have had Bush nationalize the National Guard so that they would pay for it rather than the state. I would tell him to bring the Army in to keep peace and quiet. I would tell every bus driver north of Interstate 10 to fill his bus with gas, at every filling station and every grocery store to just give those people whatever they wanted and keep a record of it, and I would see to it they got paid. I would get authority for that from the legislature. I would have sent those buses to New Orleans, and I would have told all these South Louisiana Cajuns and wonderful sportsmen who have boats to go to New Orleans and use their boats to ferry people from their homes and the Superdome and these other places and bring them to where the buses were on the highway waiting for them. I would have then put them in gymnasiums, in schools, throughout the state rather than sending them to Houston and Atlanta and other places. I would have had the schools closed for a week or 10 days and let the kitchens prepare meals for them, because all the schools have good kitchen facilities. And then after things settled down, we would have begun to determine what to do with those people and see about returning them. I would have gotten criticized for it. They'd have said I was a dictator, and they were probably right. But a lot of people who died unnecessarily would have been able to read about how I was a dictator.
What are your feelings on BP a couple of years ago?
Ooh.
First thing, I think it was very unfair and unwise for the president to declare a moratorium. We've been drilling offshore in our waters for over 50 years. This is the first major problem we have, and it was a human problem that was just inattention by employees of a number of companies, not just BOP, but the company that owned the derrick, that owned and operated the blowout preventer. And had they properly installed and maintained that equipment, it would not have happened. It's an accident that happened. Now, by the logic of the opponents who want to close the Gulf to drilling, if an airplane crashes, you close down the airlines. But that's not the way things are done. Right. We need maybe more safety regulations, but I don't know of anything that could be done more than is already required of these oil companies. And we have to recognize that it's a hazardous business and there will be some errors.
I wanted to go back because I think the public is so interested in your life today now. What are your immediate plans next few months?
Next few months, I'm going to be touring the state on book signing tours. We've already been to 4 or 5 places, and I have something like 20 already scheduled. I want to use that to, meet and greet old friends and hopefully make new ones, give people an opportunity to buy the book, which I'll be happy to autograph for them if they wish, and then use the time after that to write the sequel to the book with emphasis on the trial, because I think people are interested in knowing what happened and why it happened. And let me say to you, I'm not going to insult anybody or lie about anybody or whine or complain. I'm going to go to the record. I'm going to cite book and page and line, and people can check on what I say because it's going to be accurate, because I'm convinced that everybody who knows accurately what happened and the prejudice that was exhibited during the trial will have a different perspective.
I know when Leo was getting ready to put the book out, he was waiting on a possible pardon from President Bush. Did you ever have any hint that it was going to happen, not going to happen? And how did you feel when it came and went?
I certainly expected it to happen. The President of the United States, his father wrote him, asked him to do it, because the senior Bush and I were friends, not good friends, but I'd met with him on a number of occasions while he was president and I was governor, and he was kind enough to intervene on my behalf. Dozens of other high-ranking political figures did so, and over 250,000 people signed a petition asking him to do that. The AFL-CIO statewide adopted a unanimous resolution asking for clemency. One of the principal Republican figures in Louisiana, Dave Treen, led the fight, and he assured me on a number of occasions, and it was his honest opinion, that it was going to happen. It didn't happen, and of course I was disappointed, but so be it. I didn't go to bed crying about it. I said, well, it's just one of those things that didn't happen that I would have liked to have happened. I'll live and I'll survive, and I did.
Have you ever had any aspirations to be president?
Yes, at one time in my heyday, when Teddy Kennedy was thinking about running for president, he and I talked about I would run as his vice president. We had our own slogan, Teddy and Eddie.
Oh. And, that would have been a nice bumper sticker.
Yeah, it would.
And it made a nice bumper sticker.
We've been great friends with Leo for a long time. So from the start of the book, from its origins to the present,
people are listening to this. I'd be careful with this.
I know, to admit to it. And it's been interesting for us because we feel like we've kind of been able to keep keep plugged into what you've been doing over the last couple of years. My question is, when you start out with something like this and you're trying to tell your story, A, how was it to work with Leo Honeycutt, and B, where do you start? Are they just random ideas, and was Leo a help in like triggering memories and whatnot, or where do you even start?
I'm going to write a book about how helpful and supportive he was. It'll be 2 pages. He spent a lot of time with me while I was in prison, did a tremendous amount of research, as can best be described in the book itself, and I'm looking forward to continuing working with him.
I have one more question regarding Leo. Whatever, Leo.
It's the Leo Honeycutt Show.
He stated in the book that it took a while. He felt it took a while for you to let your guard down. As he put it, the mask to come off. Was there something that he did or said that caused you to finally go, okay, kid, here we go?
No, it's just one of his disabilities. He didn't recognize that I was being candid and fair. After a while, as he got to thinking about it in a more productive and thoughtful way, he realized that he was wrong, and I accept that.
Well, I think he did a hell of a job with the book.
He certainly did, and the sales now over 60,000 copies are tremendous. It's number 57 nationally in popularity of biographies, and it was given an award last year as the best biography written in Louisiana. Gus Wilde was on the radio the other day, and who's a critic in his own right and a very good writer himself, and said that he thought it was better than All the King's Men, which is going a little far, but I wasn't a king, so I couldn't have had any men.
Yeah.
He came to speak to us, Leo did, at Women in Media, and he brought the advanced, what do you call that thing, Leo? Help me. It's
the manuscript.
The layout. No, the layout, and it was, he asked all the women in the room, which it was Women in Media, which cover do you like, this black and white picture or the blue? And do you remember that everyone loved the blue?
That's why
the ladies love you in the blue, which is, Leo said, that's why we went with the black and white. Just so you know.
You idiot.
Tough crowd.
Goodness gracious. Best day of your life, hardest day of your life. Will you share that? I know that's deep.
Hardest day of my life was when they told me my brother had been murdered. Because prior to that, I had no tragedies in my life. Everything had come easy. We were poor, but we ate well, and we were in good health, and we didn't have any of the problems that haunt modern-day children. Probably the best day of my life was when I walked out of prison, and this lady met me.
Great answer.
As far as today's politicians go, and this is my question to you, I think that, and regardless of whatever my political belief or background is, that leadership is truly what's missing across the board, and really in both parties these days. Do you see or feel that today's politicians are too vanilla, too generic in what they do, catering to the press? Because to me, you always stood up as a leader. When Edwin Edwards spoke, people listened.
And when I spoke, I meant what I said, and I did what I said. Nowadays, politicians try to avoid any kind of controversy. They will not take a position. They refuse to do what they're supposed to do, and that is to provide leadership. It's easy to say, there go the crowd, and I'm going to follow them. What's important if you're a public figure in charge of things is to do things and make things happen. I like to tell people about Cassandra, who was a Greek goddess who had the gift of prophecy, but nobody believed what she said. Curses. Same with me. I prophesied a number of things that people laughed at and scoffed in the 80s and the 70s, and it's all come true. Mm-hmm. I haven't gotten any apologies from anybody, but that's understandable. It was hard to believe when I said it in 1978 and oil was going for $12, $15 a barrel, that it would someday be $100 a barrel. They thought I was crazy. But you check today's record and see what oil is selling for, and go to the gas pump and see what you're paying for gasoline. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I think we should do. We are producing about 75 million barrels of oil a year in this state. Production and reserves have declined by 4.4% in the past decade, and they're projected to decline by almost 2%. We need to take advantage of the production. What we need to do to erase this deficit that General has left us with is put a $5 a barrel surtax on the oil as it comes out of the ground. It would generate a little over $300 million a year and erase the deficit in about 4 years' time. It would come from the ground and not from your pocket, but it would solve the problem.
Sounds like you're running for office again.
Saying.
Well, I'm not running, therefore I can express my opinion,
Okay.
insane though they may be.
Is there a sense of freedom with that truly now? I mean, since you're not pursuing public office, are you able to be a little less uncensored, or have you always been uncensored?
Oh, no, one of my great problems, I never was worried about being censored.
So true.
And too often, maybe I spoke out and said things that were controversial, but it was what I believed. And people learned to believe what I said, that is, believe that I believed it, and in some instances hope that I wouldn't accomplish it, and other instances hope that I would. But I never, Buddy Romer ran for governor in 1987 on a strict platform of no gambling. Yet while he was governor, most of the gambling in Louisiana today came under his watch. The video poker, which I asked him to veto, but he didn't veto, riverboats, and the lottery. The only form of gambling for which I'm responsible is the casino in New Orleans. And I say to my friends and opponents, if you don't like that, don't go to the casino. They're not going to trap you and take you down there.
Right.
There are enough people anxious to go that it's hard to get in the door. But it's something that I don't advocate gambling. I used to gamble. I haven't gambled in 10 years because they send you to the hole if you gamble in prison. And I couldn't find anybody in there with enough money to really gamble, so I didn't. But I never did suggest that it's a good thing. It's a bad habit, and people should not gamble. But 84% of the people in this country gamble from time to time.
Right.
And when I said in 1984 that soon there would be gambling all over this country, people laughed at me. At that time, only 2 states, Nevada and New Jersey, had any kind of casino gaming as we know it.
Right.
A number of states, Alabama, Florida, New Mexico, California, had horse racing, Maryland, and also New York. Alabama had a dog track, but that was it. As I said then, it's coming, and we might as well take advantage of it. So I advocated it. It was controversial, and people raised hell about it. But after that was done and the gaming came, practically everybody who ran for any significant office always took a position he or she was going to stop it. They would not let it expand. But there's more gambling in Louisiana today than there was when I left office in 1996. Not one of them, and I say this, not one of them made any serious effort to do what they said they would do, stop it. Do you know why? Because they can't find a way to replace the $600 million a year in tax revenue that it brings, nor can they find jobs for the 50,000 people who work in the industry.
Right.
And if they did, it would just create an outflow of money into Mississippi and other states that are wise enough to have that as an opportunity. It creates jobs, it brings tourism, and it's an opportunity for people to do, if they wish, what they would like to do.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank you very much. It went very, very fast, so it must be interesting.
Thank you, Governor. We really appreciate your time.
Very good.